FC100 here, and welcome. You know, when I think of nostalgic TV, I think of this. Yep, I think of that. But what do you think when you think of nostalgic TV? No! That show was freaking horrible! Okay, besides Cartoon Network or South Park, what do you think of when you think of, visualizing nostalgia TV? Why would you? Okay, besides Cartoon Network and somehow getting blinded by the awesomeness of the TV. Okay, I'm talking about Codename Kids Next Door. And why wouldn't you? It was one of the best shows ever made by Tom Warburton. No, he's not related to Patrick Warburton, one of the most famous voices in all of movie and TV. But the idea is, this show was great. It had great references to movies and TV shows. It also had great comedy and also really excellent characters. So, I'm going to tell you my top 10 best Codename Kids Next Door episodes. But I do really want to warn you about two things. I'm not going to be sure that your favorite episode's going to be on this list. Oh, come on! Jeez. And the second warning, when I talk about the episodes, I'm not gonna show clips from the show. Yeah, I know that many of you are gonna be disappointed by that. Well, the reason why is just because not really the show's been, released much on DVD by season, of course, and I couldn't find any videos to try to get to, for the episodes. So what I can rather do, I can actually talk about the experience of the show, and I'm really good at that. So of course, before I bring in the intro, I do also want to tell you that I do have a bit of, forgetting things. So I wrote on this piece of paper to remind me what episode I'm talking about. And no, it's not the script. I checked. Okay, cue the intro. Mini golf. Yeah, I've played mini golf before, outside and digitally. But this episode talks about how boring mini golf is, but also kind of reveals the twist. It also reveals one of my favorite characters from the show, number 2, or should you call him Hoagie Gilligans. From the idea is, you see, the kids next door are somehow watching a golf game and is distracting one of the most famous golfers. So, guess what? He ends up losing the game to number 2, and so then he tries to get revenge on number 2 for destroying his career by shrinking him into golf size, battling him in a rematch while being in golf form, and also trying to destroy the world. But number 2 tries to find a quick way on trying to stop them. So, let me get this straight. You're upset just because a person beat you at golf, so you end up trying to destroy the world, plus you're living in your parents' basement? Yeah, your popularity's up there. But, of course, I do want to understand that, of course, it's a show that involves kind of crazy, weird things happening. And the ending is a little bit weird too. But like I said, this is an episode that I think you should check out. and it's worth watching. But also, to make sure that you check out that episode, of course there's reruns on Cartoon Network, but if you really want to check them out on a good point, I say check out this website on the bottom of the descriptions. It literally has every single episode on that site. I highly recommend that website to check out the episodes, but make sure you know what you're checking out. Okay, next one. Tommy. Okay, now of course this is one of my favorite characters, but it also reveals the sibling, Tommy P. Gilligan's. Now Tommy eventually ends up becoming a permanent installment into the Kids Next Door franchise after his first revealance. I was wondering about this character sometimes. I actually thought he was going to be bad. Oh, but that was for another character, which I will talk about in another point of the countdown. But I do want to explain this is one of a great episode, even though it's not something that's really good, but it's somehow way overlooked. The episode involves the kids next door fighting the common cold, but then number two's brother, Tommy, is a big distraction. So they try to leave him out while Tommy goes out, in the bus and finds the common cold there, and they try to devise a plan to destroy the kids next door. Yeah. If your brother ignores you, try to be with a bad guy. Yeah, that's a pretty well twist, okay. So the idea is number two has to figure out how to defeat a gigantic boom bug from, that evil common cold, and they find out that Tommy built the robot, and now number two tries to use a bit of orange juice to defeat it. But of course vitamin C is not going to work, but somehow chicken soup will. This is another thing I wanted to talk about because you know how somehow voice actors change over the years? Voice actors for the adults of the parents of the kids next door change in like seconds. I mean, seriously, the first actress to play number two's mom doesn't continue in the further season. She's played by a different voice actress. What, they couldn't keep up in trying to keep the voices of the characters? But it's nothing too big, but I'm pretty fine with it. But it's an episode I can tell you is worth checking out, because even though it's overlooked, it has a bit of suspense and also understandment to be healthy, and also don't catch the common cold, kids, or else you have to eat a lot of chicken soup. Okay, the next one. Oompa! Now, no, this has nothing to do with, what you think. But of course, it has something that I never thought to expect. You see, this is the revealing of number one's father. Now, somehow they keep the other kids next door's parents in the shadows, but then we see number one's father. I never understand why we got to see the father first of number one, but then he ends up becoming an important character in the further episodes. I won't reveal what it is, but it actually really is interesting and suspenseful for me when I watch the show. But of course, let's get to the episode. The idea is his father wants more time with his son, just to try to take him out of the mind of being too much with the kids next door. So, of course, he takes him fishing. But then that ends up becoming a downfall when they start having an argument with each other. But then the father is captured by a boy who somehow is wanting a father to be with at the time while his father's grocery shopping. I don't know for how long, but of course he's, scared. So he decides to hang out with number one's father in the sousaphones. But of course, number one's father just wants to be with his son. So number one decides to try to save his father, but then of course, it ends up becoming an Upa battle. It's just like a battle. Number one loses, but then, of course, the weird twist happens when the son's father ends up coming back. And so then we get a complete argument in the end about, you need sousaphone lessons. I bet you can have an whatever. It's a kind of weird episode, and it's not really that great. But somehow, when I watch it, it had a lot of funny jokes, and also something of a connection to the further seasons. That could be the reason why I like the episode. And we also learn the personality of number one's father. So, of course, it's not one of the best, but it does deserve its rights to be in the top pick. Okay, getting to the next one. Clues. Now, this happens to be two parts of this episode. I'm only going to talk about part one. In this episode, Hoagie is having a dinner party with number 3, or should I say Cookie's parents. And so, of course, she and her sister Mushi are invited. So now, while number 2 and number 3 are getting along, they end up having some kind of mischiefs when number 3's doll has been somehow murdered, or as they call it in the show, rainbow monkeys. Yeah, I know, the toys in that show are really strange. But of course, the rainbow monkey gets killed, and so now ends up to number 2 to solve the case. Cake 2. Now, I do want to talk about this. This happens to be one of the episodes where it involves the Codename Kids Next Door trying to get the Delightful Children's birthday cake because they don't deserve it. Now, there's over a bunch of these in the further seasons, and even in the first season, they of course reveal the first part, but Cake 2 seems to be the better one for this reason. Because it has an awesome theme at the end. Literally, the music is so awesome. It's just, wow, I loved the ending. But of course, there are some other perspectives. Here's the plot. The kids next door is doing their usual thing by trying to get the Delightful Children's birthday cake, but then they end up becoming decoys in the big reveal where they have the cake in the stadium and the cake ends up becoming a monster trying to stop the kids next door. But of course, during those false moments, we also get in some mischief with the complications between number 1 and his girlfriend Lizzie. Now, Lizzie ended up becoming a permanent character on the show for further seasons or more. And also, there's an episode I specifically want to talk about. I really want to talk about that clearly. Yeah, it's going to be revealed very soon. But to the point, this episode is worthwhile. Because it kind of reveals the idea of complication of having a job and also being in your life, having a life, with someone. It's something that clearly understands the idea and personality of the characters. It has great suspense and also shocking moments, and as well as a great ending to do with it. I won't reveal the ending because it's clearly something you gotta see. But until then, let's get to the next episode. The Shogun. Okay. Imagine if you had 2 of your favorite things. Cheese and martial arts. Samurai martial arts, of course. And what do you get? To fight the Cheese Shogun. In this episode, number 2 and number 4 are going on their usual business and trying to going into a cheese restaurant which somehow doesn't have cheese because the Cheese Shogun steals all the cheese and doesn't want anyone to take their cheese. So they end up becoming hostages and, trying to escape. So, of course, they try to get everyone out of there, but number 2 is not leaving without his cheese. So they have a battle with the cheese Shogun. Who would win the battle? I don't know what happened because clearly it was off screen. No, seriously, they never show who wins the battle. Well, of course they do reveal who wins the battle, but the idea is we never get to see some action or anything. We literally just get to, I don't know. We don't see anything. That's the only problem I have. But somehow it fixes it with good comedy, an understanding of the personalities of number 2 and number 4, and, number 2's funny lines, that really cracks people up. And also may not crack people up. But of course, it's a good episode that deserves the right of watch. It's an episode that you shouldn't skip and somehow to enjoy. Okay, on to the next episode. Training. Now, of course, this is an episode involving number 2's brother, Tommy. Now, actually, this one was actually going to be number 1, but there are 2 more episodes that kind of brought that up more. Now, the reason why I love this episode was because it actually shows the abilities that no matter what you are, you can accomplish something. It's when Tommy and a few friends are in training to become Codename Kids Next Doors, or KND is the short term. In this episode, one of the commanders are distracted by a false, emergency from a sector up into the moon base. It ends up becoming Father trying to steal the code book. Now, the KND code book, as they call it, is, something very secretive and actually becomes important into the Kids Next Door film. Like I said, I'm not going to reveal that. But in this episode, it really drives Tommy because he actually has a smart brain to understand how hard it is to be a Kids Next Door, and also tries to get his friends to help out too. Now, another thing I do want to talk about is that there's this really funny scene that I've never expected. It's a scene where they're both captured and everything, and then one of the teammates, which happens to be a girl, ends up finding out that we finding out that she is afraid of the dark, and she's so afraid of the dark that she goes into a panic and literally beats up anyone who tries to take her to the dark. We don't see what she does by beating them up, either really hurting them. Like, seriously, every time you think of you want to take her to the dark, she's literally gonna beat you down. I mean, I was surprised when oh my gosh, this girl's a freaking psycho. Like, wow. It's like, I can't believe this happened. But of course, it's not too overused. So Tommy somehow figures out a way to defeat Father and ends up saving the day, which actually understands that he's smart enough to do what he can do, and clearly he knows to work with teams. This is an episode that's really funny and actually has a lot of great action moments, and also leads into a great and weird funny ending. But of course, I'm not going to reveal it. So, it's a worthwhile check episode, and I decided that you check it out. On to the next one. Grow up. Now, of course, you're probably wondering, why is number 2 the season finale of the first season? The reason why it's just because it's a complete understanding of growing up. The idea is the delightful children somehow get a machine from father that makes kids age. They end up using a monstrous machine by destroying the kids next door base, and also making number one grow into the age of 25. The other teammates are upset about this and try to find a way to, help out number one, but number one ends up becoming more and more, angry about this, that he decides that it's true that he has to leave the team, and ends up getting a job as an ice cream man, but it's no help, because clearly he knows that he's just going to stay an adult forever, and he knows that he can't do anything about it. This also is a good episode because it's the revealance of Father. Now, Father was one scary villain in Cartoon Network TV shows, or in all of TV shows. This guy was freaking insane, and his backstory is amazing, which is revealed in a later episode in the series. Now, his backstory is literally incredible, and I never thought it would be some kind of inventive villain. The idea of Father is somehow his skin is completely covered up in fire, and he can't get rid of it because he has a rage on trying to destroy all naughty kids. So, of course, the delightful children's father is, of course, Father. The kids next door try to defeat him, but it's no use. His powers are too great. So now it's up to number one to try to return him back, to his natural size of trying to be a kid again. So he tries to get the ray gun machine, but of course Father is one fricked up man, and he literally throws flames everywhere, and it's like, wow, you gotta see this episode. It has great suspense and a great lesson to show that growing up doesn't mean that you have to stop thinking of the idea of going back to your childhood. And as well, it shows great compassion to the personalities of great group and great characters. Okay, on to number one. Now, this one you gotta love. Girlfriend. This, I really gotta speak into pure detail about this. This episode was shocking. I mean, really shocking. And somehow we all knew, fans of the show really knew that this was coming. It was late one night and this episode came up. It has a James Bond reference and stuff, but that's not the important part. It also is the idea and truth of the lesson of how you deal with your life and secondary life. It's kind of like the idea of Batman. This actually is similar to Batman. Like, the episodes about number one doing his jobs, and now he has to be with his girlfriend, and because he, is on a date with her, involving like a wedding for her sister. It was really shocking when you get through the episode. We learn more about the personality of number one and his job at his life. He's a caring person who understands others, but somehow he has a hard time getting with his normal life together. The idea is he gets through some tracks and tricks, and he's starting to lose Lizzie very, very slowly. It has a really good pace. And then in the end of the episode, somehow the computer ends up falling in love. The kids next door's base, the computer-based computer is starting to fall in love with number one. It's kind of like Hal, except if he was a female or something. But literally, the computer literally takes the whole treehouse and becomes a gigantic computer monster trying to chase after number one and Lizzie. There's so much suspense, so much going on, and in the end, Lizzie literally tells the idea of truth to number one. And number one thought it was an act. And they destroyed the monster known as the female Hal. And literally, number one and Lizzie are broken up. Like, she literally say that she can't take it anymore, and there's no way to say this more, but she can't involve with the kids next door, and says goodbye to him. And he literally was sad about that, and it was a sad episode to look at. I know that it kind of has a little bit of a twist in the end if anyone saw that episode, but man, was it depressing and shocking. I mean, number one, he's a good person, but also he's obsessed with his job. He does his best for the people he cares about to try to be, having time. But somehow, it's kind of true that if he has this big job and he needs to do it, it is seeming that he can't have time for others. This episode really brings that lesson. It's kind of like Batman. Like, Batman's a superhero and everything, but did he have really time for life? He does, but only like a short amount of time. It's like you have to choose. You can't just have one big life and a small life and just decide to just do it both. You have to choose one. It's a great lesson that I clearly, it was a time when we were just watching a bunch of TV shows and we really never cared for anything about than just watching our favorite characters, do what they do best. But this episode gave us a reason why to like this show, because it brings out good characters, understandable lessons, and also understanding that not every ending is a happy ending. It's like this episode, it kind of feels a little bit bittersweet. I was really shocked. Of course, there's a little bit of good in it because we find out that the leader of the kids next door kind of has a thing for number one. But of course, that will probably be revealed in the future. But like I said, this is an episode that I think deserves a lot because it clearly understands the characters in our show and that they're not just one-dimensional characters that clearly just involve them trying to fight adult tyranny. They have a personality of their own, and I think this episode shows it real well. And that's my top 10 Codename Kids Next Door episodes. Now, for all of you who didn't see their favorite episode, here's my runners-up. FC100 signing out, and see you on my next video.